Hello viewers, I am Suhail Quadri and it's springtime here in the lush green southern France. While the flowers are blooming around me in this wonderful weather, the one thing different this spring is that I failed to see honeybees around me. Lately there has been a lot of concern amongst beekeepers across Europe and United States in regards to the disappearance of bees. Beekeepers have reported a loss of stock between 30% to 90%. Bees would simply leave and not return back to their beehives. Beekeepers found empty boxes with little or no explanation for the disappearance of the bees. Although this has been happening on a smaller scale for the last 30 years, the epidemic has been more severe since the year 2006. And this epidemic has been given the name of colony collapse disorder because of the mysterious condition for the downfall. Various researchers and reports have pointed a finger towards a pesticide more commonly known as neonicotinoids, which has resulted in a subsequent ban from the European Union for 2 years. The bee crisis has affected all three indicators of ecological development, that is people, profit, and place.
To get a deeper understanding of the problem, I decided to examine multiple articles from experts, namely the Royal Horticultural Society UK, National Geographic, and Green Science. The Royal Horticultural Society tends to suggest that the decline is not across all species, but in species which depend more on flowers. They also believe that existing bees have reduced strength. The factor attributed for this is loss of natural pastures and pesticides. According to Dr. Cunningham, the team leader at CSIRO in Ecosystem Sciences, the neonicotinoid pesticides seem to affect neurotransmitters in the bee's brain. The bees get lost and do not return to their hive. The pesticide also contaminates pollen that is fed to the brood, which they die and weaken the hive overall. To talk more about the state of bees because of the menace caused by pesticide is a fourth-generation beekeeper, Matt Parkley.
The use of pesticides can fog their brain and alter the behavior. Pesticides do not necessarily kill adult bees, but they weaken their immune system and make more prone to attacks by other pathogens. Although most pesticides across Europe carrying labels stating dangerous to bees, they are not necessarily appropriately used by farmers. Direct spray on bees or flowers openly can cause direct harm to the bee. Also, bees affected by sublethal doses of the now banned European pesticide neonicotinoids can cause it to be more easily affected by the gut parasites such as nosema. Also, inert ingredients in pesticides are never tested for, and when this pesticide is given a green light by the environmental agencies, it can cause as much or more damage to the bee as the active ingredient. Combined with the disease in pesticides is the loss of natural habitat of the bee. This affects their nutrition, leading to weaker bees. Many bees die because they simply can't find food. To ensure the healthy development of bees, we are forced to manage their colonies effectively, unlike in the past where we let nature do most of the work. We are also forced to ensure that the bees find enough nutrition. This can mean feeding the bees sugary solutions, especially during winter months, because there simply are not enough flowers out in the wild.
The Royal Horticultural Society believes that diseases and parasites, especially varroa mites, have been a major contributor in their recent disappearance over the past 6 to 8 years. The varroa destructor evolved in Southeast Asia. It caused little harm to the local bee species, but as the mite reached Europe, it had disastrous impacts as the European bees were not immune to it. As a result, the bee colony collapsed within 2 to 3 years. The bee colony can be affected by virus such as deformed wing virus, acute paralysis virus, slow paralysis virus, and cloudy wing viruses that the varroa can transmit. Although they do not kill the particular bee instantly, they reduce the longevity of the bee, because of which they die prematurely. This reduces their abilities as bee gatherers. Longevity is very crucial in bee colonies. Even if you reduce their lives by a few days, the colony is unable to thrive. The U.S. Department of Agriculture has indicated in a report to Congress that a combination of factors, such as pesticides, pathogens, and parasites, have been a cause of CCD. Loss of bees is not only an environmental threat but has economical implications as well. That's right, we mean profit. Some estimate that the financial impact could be as high as 30 billion. We depend on pollinators like bees for nearly a third of the world's produce. Without pollinators, we would be forced to pollinate manually. This would lead to a huge surge in fruit/vegetable prices. This is not so far-fetched as you may think. In fact, due to the disappearance of bees in certain parts of China, farmers have been forced to hand-pollinate, resulting in skyrocketing vegetable prices. To give us a glimpse of the issue in Australia is senior environmental journalist Jessica Brown. So, generally speaking, what is the condition of the Australian honeybee?
Well, Australia has 1,600 species of honeybees, and there's doubts whether the Australian population has declined significantly over the last few years. According to Dr. Cunningham, the situation of the Australian honeybee is better. Unlike the European honeybee, the Australian bee is not starving to death because there's ample food supply, including the native flora, so strawberries, avocados, such like,
I see.
Another thing is the Australian winters, they're not as severe as the European winters, so there's much more food available throughout the year. According to ABC, chemical regulator the APVMA is researching the impact of neonicotinoids on the health of honeybees. Trevor Weatherhead of the Australian Honeybee Industry Council says neonicotinoids are a concern for the industry. Their sublethal effects can have a heavy impact in the long term. It is a different situation in Australia thanks to our strong quarantine system, which makes the deadly varroamite not present in Australia. A large majority of Australian bees are in soil nesting. The undisturbed soil provides bees with more opportunities to flourish. A challenge unique to the existence of the Australian bee is that the recent growth in urbanisation, each year many beehives are destroyed when hollow trees are cleared for development.
So how are we dealing with the issue here in Australia?
Well, unlike Europe, there's no current ban or proposal to place a ban in Australia. There's a review underway and its findings will be out by the end of this year. If any bans are to be taken place, they will only take place after July 2014.
Yes.
A Paris, Craig Scott, and the public officer for the Crop Pollinators Association of Australia, and he's been keeping bees commercially for more than 25 years. And he says that the industry needs to move away from alarmist rhetoric, and he also agrees that the varroamite is more likely to wipe out all the managed honeybees. Nonetheless, like the big pesticide manufacturers in Australia, Europe, and US are in a state of denial, and they state that there is no evidence of the problem due to the chemicals.
After researching through multiple ideas, I have come to a conclusion that there has been a rapid loss of bees across Europe and United States. There is no denying to the crisis. However, my ideas as to why this has occurred have become very diverse. They range from the excessive use of pesticides to things like diseases, loss of pasture, and not proper management by beekeepers. The situation is grim, but not all is lost. The banning of certain pesticides in Europe for 2 years is a good sign, and proper training must be given to beekeepers to ensure that the bee colonies thrive in the future. Bees play an important part in our economy. They are not only responsible for the pollination of many fruits and vegetables, but they also put in about $30 billion worth of goods into our economy. Australia at the moment remains protected from the bee crisis, and there are few chances that the deadly varroamite will come to Australia. But still, according to Dr. Hugen Doon, an ecologist from the University of Adelaide, we need a fundamental change in the way we use insecticides, which will help encourage native bee pollinators, as many insecticides impact the bees adversely.